Really happy to have Dolly along to deliver this. Dolly's been an artist connected to Disability Arts Online since before my time, and I've been at the organisation for 9 years now, so going back some way. Dolly's been a blogger with us for a long time, was an associate. We're working on Dolly on a future project around disability justice. So we're really happy to have Dolly along to deliver it. Dolly actually approached us about with the idea for this session on self-publishing. It is a topic we get asked about quite a lot, so we were really happy to be able to say, yes, we'd love you to do that. So without further ado, I'll stop waffling on and hand over to Dolly. But if you've got any technical stuff or need help, put it in the chat and I will try and get to that. Otherwise, you're not going to hear a lot from me. I'm just here to help and facilitate. We'll probably be doing some breakout activities. So you may be invited into a breakout room at that point. Just got another person arriving just now, so I'm just going to let them in. But yeah, I'll shut up and hand on to Dolly.
Hello, my name is Dolly. I am a writer, filmmaker, troublemaker, artist, performer. I do all sorts of stuff, really. And it actually all started with writing. I was actually going to be a doctor, but that was the plan at school. But I'll talk about a little bit about that later. But I will describe myself. I am a middle-aged person with brown olive skin. I have dark shoulder-length hair. I am greying. I think it makes me look distinguished. Well, at least something does. I'm wearing dark glasses, and I've got a dark top on and a burgundy hoodie, and I'm in the very messy living room at the moment because we're sorting out Christmas and stuff. So I'm going to start sharing the PowerPoint.
With people who can't see the PowerPoint, Dolly will be reading out any of the text that's on the slides. If there's anything visual that is required for understanding, then Dolly's going to describe that. So yeah, just for point of reference, really.
So yeah, the title of this session is How to Self-Publish, and it comes from my experience, like 20-year experience of doing it. Yeah, I was getting a lot of emails saying to people, how do you self-publish? How do you self-publish? So I went to Disability Arts Online, says, do you want to do a session on how to self-publish? Because then I can just do it the once and then share the resources people ask me in the future. Well, let's see. Oh no. So just a quick run through of what the session will have in it. I'll talk about my experience. I'll talk about a little bit about editing and proofreading. We'll talk about the actual book. I'll talk about ISBNs. We'll talk a little bit about legal stuff. We'll talk about the cover design. We'll do a couple of exercises to kind of warm up our brains about this process. We'll talk about ebooks, which way to print, whether to do it traditionally or print on demand. We'll talk about legal deposits, a little bit on marketing, and then there'll be a Q&A session. So it's quite an involved process, as you can just see from this this quick list. So yeah, my story basically is that I was wanting to be a doctor, but I had my first psychosis at 14, dropped out of school at 14, didn't really engage with education or the world really until I was 30. But in that time, when I was well enough, I used to write a lot of poetry. And when I was 30, I had a stay in psychiatric hospital. And one of the things they did on discharging me was kind of referred me to a service called First Step Trust in South London, where you learn vocational skills. And I was put in the print room to print posters and cards and stuff like that. And I just thought there was a lot of times when we weren't doing anything. So I thought, I know what I'll do. I'll put my poetry together and make a cover and make my own book. So literally, I physically made my own book, which was my collection of poetry and short stories called Eloquent Catatonia. And I did this on the computer at First Step Trust. I didn't even have my own computer at the time. And then not long after, my brother, who works in computers, got me a computer with Photoshop. So I thought I will do a second book, but this time I only designed the book, and I went to a local printer and got about 100 copies of both these books. And actually, the way I sold them was I used to go to a lot of poetry readings, such as, you know, survivors poetry and things like that. And I think would say 90% of my poetry books were sold in that way. You know, very few at that time, this is in the early noughties, was done online. I would say it's the other way around now. So yeah, that's how I started, was literally just physically making the book at first, and then kind of going to a local printer with a book. So that's how I started. And what's really amazing about that was it helped me get published by other publishers, because when for example, I was at a mental health coffee morning, and I bumped into a few publishers, and all I could say, instead of giving them a business card, I said, this is my writing. And I got some, you know, my first memoir published that way. So it was really helpful, kind of getting me published by other people. I mean, I would say 90% of what I send out to the world via, you know, in with regards to literature, is done by other people now. So yeah, that's how I started. I got interested in sharing other people's voices as well, because I was writing to somebody on death row in California at the time, and he was sending me poetry about his experiences growing up. And when I was 30, I made the decision to really live life to the full, and to kind of face fears. You know, I was a very fearful person. This is, some people don't realize I'm still quite a fearful person in some ways, but I just believe face your fears. So I went, without really thinking about, I went to California and listened to these guys' stories, and they became my first book I published that wasn't by me. So it was a anthology of 4 guys on death row. One of them who is off death row now because of a legal thing. I mean, the capital punishment world in America is very dodgy, in that you could be on trial for your life and have a tax lawyer represent you. It's a very dodgy system. But anyway, so you hear a bit about what it's like to be on death row for that book. So, and then I did a few other people's stories, and I called my my small press. It was very small, literally just my desk, whole books, and that did quite well as well. I started to talk to book people and literature people, and what I found out, for example, with this book, I contacted charities interested in human rights and stuff like that, and was managed to sell quite a few there. It also meant, because I had my own books out, I had to read my stuff. Being very, very shy at the time, that's how I literally got into kind of performing. But I would say, if you are personally interested in publishing poetry, although online is a good way to sell them, I think the best way to sell your work is performing it, because then people could see the life in the words, so to speak. And yeah, I think I published 100 of each of my first 2 poetry books, and I sold, I would say, 80% of that was at readings and stuff, and at events. So that's my kind of story. But let's get on to the actual process. Oh yeah, these are the books I've had since. I think only one of those is self-published, and that's the I Love Psychiatry colouring book. Everything else has been published by other people or other companies. I've also been in several anthologies or and academic books and stuff like that as well. So when people say, "Oh, I mean, I did a," the benefits system that it's always been rubbish, and it's much worse now. But I was told, what do you want to? When I went on kind of like training sessions by the benefit agency, and they would say to me, what do you want to do? I said, I wanted to be a writer. I was laughed at all the time. And when I had my first book published by somebody else, not myself, I sent it to this person who laughed in my face, and I said, laugh now. I won't say what I said after that. So yeah, let's get on with, do you want to publish a book? I mean, self-publishing could mean all sorts of different things, but I'm going to concentrate on the book. So this page is asking you a few questions like what size, what size book? I mean, the 5-inch by 8-inch shape is the most used one. Kind of hardback or paperback. I think if you're just starting out, paperback is the way to go, because hardback is, it's hard to sell anyway for any even multi-million pound publishers. So I would go with paperback. So yeah, you have to think, what size do you want your book to be the same size of all the other books, or do you want your books to be smaller? Do you want your books to be bigger? These are the questions you need to ask. And actually, font, even a thing like fonts isn't very straightforward. You have to think about, are the fonts accessible? So I've just put a list of what is seen as accessible. So there's Arial. Oh, I've spelled Verdana wrong, but Helvetica, Calibri, Century Gothic, and Tahoma. See, I can't even pronounce them, let alone. But those are seen to be the most accessible fonts. But I wonder how many people have thought about the politics of fonts, because there are lots. I mean, I would if you are interested, I would recommend a book called Extra Bold. It's a feminist, inclusive, anti-racist, non-binary field guide for graphic designers, and it talks about the politics of fonts. I mean, like there are quite a few fonts created by paedophiles and misogynistic people, and people use it without really understanding that. So that's quite an interesting area to get into. But yeah, before you even start actually touching the physicalness of the book, or starting the physical process, you have to do a bit of thinking. I'm mildly dyslexic, so when I write, I need somebody else to go over my work to to pick up typos and stuff like that. What I also tend to do is drop words. So some people can do their own writing and editing, but I do need a bit of help. And the easiest way I have found people to do that is just asking on social media. Within the kind of disability arts world, there are plenty of people who are really good at this as well. So I don't think you'll have any problems finding proofreaders or editors if you need it. So, but yeah, this is like before you even start the process, thinking of what you want your book to look, the size of the book, whether you want it paperback, what font it will be in, and will you self-edit, or will you get somebody else to edit, or I mean, even having a few friends have a read through of it, they will will find some typos and any mistakes, like that. So yeah, that's the book. ISBNs. If you look at any book, let's find this, the book I just picked up. Under the, or on top of the barcode is a 13-digit number. That's the ISBN. And basically, it's just a system for a worldwide system for any person interested in buying your book or, buying your book. That's how they will find your book, is through the ISBN. But I would say not all books need to have ISBNs. It's basically who are your books for? If you just want to do a small, you just want to have some books to give out at events, or if you want world domination, is a very different thing. My last book that was published by somebody else is the Lorena Bulwer book, and it's a very plain book. It's blue. It's got Lorena Bulwer in orange lettering, and on the back there's no ISBN. There's nothing. This book has no ISBN, but it has sold thousands. Well, it's not even a book; it's a booklet. Has sold thousands. So you don't technically need an ISBN. But if you want to sell your books in bookshops or online, like online shopping like Amazon or Barnes and Nobles, you will need to have an ISBN. And unfortunately, they're not cheap. It's £93 for one ISBN, so you need one per book. And if you want to have a hard copy and an ebook, you need two ISBNs. So it's literally one ISBN per book. It's slightly cheap if you buy 10 of them. It's £174. But yeah, when I started, it wasn't this expensive. It was literally something like £30 for 10 ISBNs. But yeah, your book, if you want your book to be in bookshops, online or in on the high street, they need ISBNs. But if you want to just sell them when you do events or set up your own online shop, then you don't really need to have one. It's where you want your books to be, basically. So those are ISBNs, and ISBN stands for International Standard Book Number. We could do a whole webinar on the legal stuff. This slide's talking about the legal stuff, so I'm not going to cover any of it, but I have listed a few links because I think it's really helpful to inform yourself on copyright if you don't know about it, and contracts. So there are 3 links. One that is the British Copyright Organisation, one is creativecommons.org, and another one is a university resource thing. And even though I've been doing this quite a while, my recent project, which I helped publish 3 books, you'll find it's copyright is you'll always learn about copyright. For example, we had one writer who wanted to put a song lyric down in their chapter. We realized we couldn't do that without paying the person who wrote the song money. We didn't have the money, so that had to come out. So yeah, you do need to understand a little bit about copyright. I think Disability Arts Online have got a resource on it, or am I just imagining that, Joe?
We not specifically on publishing. But we are looking at doing a webinar with a great company. Well, we're a legal team called Counterculture, who specifically sort of focused on the culture sector and generally only defend good people. They've given us advice on contracting and stuff, but that is potentially a future webinar that we're looking at. Is a webinar on copyright, basically, that wouldn't be specifically about publishing, but certainly would be applicable to a publishing setting.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone is interested in that, then do keep an eye on
Yeah.
that. I think we have run it previously, but it's been a while since we did that. So that's probably what you're thinking of, Dolly.
Okay, thank you. So on this slide are 3 book covers. And basically I got these 3 slides from you find them in a lot of find them on a lot of websites, and these are seen as terrible book covers. I am going to describe them, and I think through the description I'll give away why they're terrible book covers. The first book is a white book. It has a low, I would say quite a low res photo of 2 white people partying. Not many, I mean, you can't tell what they're doing through the body language that's related to the book. The image is quite stretched. The title of the book is My Plan to Ruin Your Life. It's not centered, it's slightly to the left. And the description of the book is underneath the picture, and it's in really tiny writing. And it says, the first recovery book written by your addiction, with a little help from Ken Montrose, and the error highlight in Word is also included in this image. So yeah, I wouldn't buy that book just based on that image. The second one is a book with a black background, and it has in 4 different colors in the title. Well, the title's called Why Stop at Vengeance, and every word is a different color that they don't complement each other. It's quite jarring. There are images that you can't really tell what they are, and at the bottom it says a Donald Strachey mystery. Who's Donald Strachey? I don't know. Yeah, would you pick this book up and think it's something quite interesting? I wouldn't. The third book is, I quite like the look of this book, even though it is a terrible book cover. I would read this book, but it's of a demonic looking elephant. Whether it's got anything to do, whether it's got anything to do with the story, who knows? But yeah, this is a way, these are ways that won't sell your book, in that the images doesn't suit the story or the book. The kind of formatting of the text looks unprofessional. The colors are jarring rather than inviting. These are the things that I seem to put off people. I'm going to go on to some iconic book covers and describe those as well. So there's Anthony Burgess's A Clockwork Orange, and some book covers you won't remember. So I've got loads of books on my bookshelf, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what the covers look like of every one. But this, Anthony Burgess's one is a very brightly coloured. It's got an orange and yellow, bright yellow background. The text is in almost a neon yellow. I mean, I don't know. It's a very bright yellow, and it has one of the characters of the book in a kind of cartoon, with a cartoon image, and the kind of eyeliner that's shown in the film is what you can see on the face. And I think once you see that, well, for me, once you see this book, you'll remember that's what the book is. And so this is, there are a few lists online about what people think are the most iconic book covers, and you'll find that book quite a lot of them. And there's Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar, which has a quite hypnotic, in fact, so hypnotic I might fall asleep. But it's one. I don't know if it's the original cover. I'm not sure, but likewise, I can tell you that book on my bookshelf, what it looks like, what the book looks like, because it's it's an image you remember, and that's what partly what would be helpful. I mean, this you might just want to do something like my Lorena Bulwer book, just a plain cover with a name, and that's fine. But if you're interested in kind of what stands out, why would somebody pick your book out in a bookshop? If out of it, why would your one stand out amongst the others? So there's a couple of other iconic book covers. The Very Hungry Caterpillar with the I think it's a drawing. Is it a painting of the very hungry caterpillar? Like I said, you remember the visual of it. If I said to you, if you've read it, that is, as a child or even as an adult, you'll remember. But then again, you don't have to use imagery. You could just literally use text. And there's a book, I think it's maybe 5 years ago, came out 5 years ago, called "Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race." And when I saw that in a bookshop, made me instantly interested in picking up that book and seeing what it was about. And that's literally based I think the grab factor for this was it's literally how the text stands out, but also the title as well. It makes me think, oh, what's that about? So I'm going to pause here for a little bit. Does anyone want to ask any questions before I move on?
We've got a few questions that have come through in the chat.
Yeah.
It's also worth saying on that "Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race" that the to white people's like embossed. It's like not coloured in. It's like almost like it's vanishing, which is really interesting effect.
Yes.
Beth Charlie was asking, when you were talking about book sizes, whether the consideration around book sizes would also apply to pamphlets. They're saying that they'd like to self-publish a self-contained chapter they wrote on spirituality and neurodiversity.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that, Dolly?
Well, I would say my Lorena Bulwer booklet is more of a pamphlet. I mean, it's sold as a pamphlet online. So, and this isn't the standard size either. So I would think a pamphlet, if you're wanting to publish a pamphlet, but I think actually the smaller than the standard size is better. For lots of reasons. If you're, for example, if you're, talking about your book, because that's one way we'll talk later about marketing or publicizing your book. If you do a talk on the subject matter you're writing about, you have to carry these books. And I know plenty of writers who've written really thick books and regretted it because they have to put it in the backpack and carry it around. But also, I think aesthetically, pamphlets suit the smaller size, but it's literally up to you. If you want to make it like A3, is up to you. It's asking yourself why that size. But if you just want to do a standard kind of pamphlet thing, this is one of the books we put out, which is 5 by 8 inches, and this is the pamphlet. So as you can see, it is much smaller.
Yeah. We had a couple of requests for the name of the book, although someone helpfully thinks they found it. And so just to confirm, the book that was the font book was called Extra Bold by Evan Lupton and Jennifer Tobias. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Lovely.
Yes, it's quite a few people are on the list of authors.
Great. Lovely. Thank you for that, Angela, who found it. When I did some sleuthing, I said Paul's point. Thank you for that, Angela. And Carlo asks whether a book, I think I know the answer to this, Carlo asks whether a book needs an ISBN code to be stocked in libraries. If so, that could be.
Yes, it does.
Yeah,
it does. So anything like that, universities, libraries, bookshops, museums. Well, I would say museums. The Lorena Bulwer booklet is being sold in Norfolk's museum service. But that's because it's local and they know me and they know the publisher. If you were going to want to sell it to, say, a museum that didn't really know your work, they'll ask why you've got an ISBN number. But because the museum service in Norfolk know me and know the publisher, it was easier. They are selling these books in their bookshops. Yeah, it's ISBN numbers. You definitely need them if you want to sell them to libraries.
There was a question. Well, Tanya has said, "Is it best to type writing rather than handwritten alongside imagery?" And Tanya did ask earlier whether handwriting is inaccessible, and I would say generally handwriting is inaccessible as a sort of rule. Depends on your handwriting, really, but
yes, mine is definitely.
Mine certainly is illegible even to me. So at times, it's certainly not accessible for anyone else.
I guess it's how readable is it? And it'll cost more as well to print.
Yeah.
But I have seen books that have some handwritten pages or completely handwritten, like Kurt Cobain's diaries. I've got that book and it's mostly just all handwriting. But yeah, it's not a cheap option.
Tanya's saying that a lot of their imagery has handwritten text in it, which is I suppose it's a different for images. It's a slightly different question, probably, isn't it, Dolly? But I guess in terms of accessibility, within a book, there's probably not a huge amount you could do about that, other than you could, in your caption, you could perhaps give some clues in terms of what's in the image, Tanya. And if we're talking about ebooks, which Dolly will come on to later, then you've got the option of adding alt text to any images that are in the book. So that will be the way to make those images accessible, I would say. But sorry, Dolly.
That's all right. No, that's been useful. Thank you.
And Ivan said, "Is a book the size of The Very Hungry Caterpillar more expensive size than a standard novel size?" I would imagine.
Yes.
Any more questions at this stage, everyone? Thanks for those questions.
Those are good questions. Yeah, I thought I can't not put The Very Hungry Caterpillar. It opened my eyes to books, and I've been in love with them ever since.
It's a great book.
It's a great book. It's classic. I might even do it as a subject on Mastermind. But anyway.
Yeah. Really hard for them to ask you obscure questions. Can you remember all of the things he eats on the last day?
Yeah,
Saturday?
Yes.
My son can, I can tell you that much. Anyway, sorry. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about the anatomy of a book cover, and this is like just the standard size, and you can vary it in all sorts of different ways, and people have. So this is one of the books we've put out recently, and you'll find most books will have this. So basically, it will have the title. I think people really need to think about the book titles. For example, my Lorena Bulwer book, I wanted to give it a poetic name, and Lottie, my publisher, said no, we call it Lorena Bulwer, then people know what they're getting. And she was right. I don't think as many people have got their hands on this book if it were called what I wanted to call it, which was, I think, An Inconvenient Woman. But yeah, she was right. And so we kind of followed that idea with our books on what it's like to be a discriminated against person in the mental health system. We just called it what it was. So it's misogyny in the mental health system by the survivors themselves. Who's written the books, who's edited the books, or who's compiled the books, usually is on the front. And you'll find a lot of books will have a one-line, kind of one-line review of somebody who's read it. So luckily, Bobby Baker read the book; she loved it. So we put that this book is dynamite. It's a clarion call. So yeah, it makes people interested. If anything that will grab people's attention and spark their interest is, you know, what you want. What you'll also find in the back of most books is a description of the book. So we've got a description of what what the book is about. Like we talk about the history of misogyny and mental health, and how like the mental health patient voice isn't really privileged. People aren't allowed to tell their stories. People's patient notes are not their story. So that's how we've kind of pitched the book, is that we're not wanting it to be a medical book at all. This is about people. So that's how we kind of shaped it. And we put a few quotes from the writers inside on the book.
The image is really
striking. Quite powerful. Sorry,
isn't it, Dolly? The image is really striking for this one. It's like a bird with a broken heart in a cage, but it's very.
It's got a lot of meaning. Yeah. The image is of a grey bird perched on a broken heart within what looks like a cage. So yeah, it's like, but also it's if you use your imagination, you can see female private parts in the cage. Yeah, so it's got quite a few things. If you look at it deeply, you can see. So yeah, Caroline Cardis did that image. So yeah, it's got a few levels. We decided to put a few levels into the imagery. So yeah, we put really some powerful kind of quotes from people who've written in the books. You know, we like somebody says, "Oh, you know, I'm writing my story because I've been silent faced for so long, but the quietest whisper is still a voice. And this is me. I'm slowly standing up for the curled up child they turned me into and saying this is enough." So that's a little bit of a quote of somebody who's written the book. And then we got a quote from another reviewer, this time from a mental health professor at Lancaster University. So we thought, you know, it'd be nice to have one review from a creative person, one academic review, and the book also has its ISBN number and the barcode. So that's typically what you'll find on most books. If you grab a few books, for example, this is a really old book I'm reading at the moment, Charles Baudelaire. So there's title, the who's written it, the image behind it, the explanation for the book, a quote from a reviewer, ISBN, barcode. Yeah, it's quite a standard, a kind of standard template. Let's go to the next one. I'm assuming some people will be creating their own artwork for their books, and it won't have any problem kind of sourcing materials, like, you know, they'll produce the artwork themselves, but not everyone's kind of work is, you know, visually based. And those, what a lot of people who self-publish their work, who are not artists themselves, they will kind of take an image off the internet and adapt it in some way, using a kind of editing program. So there are loads of free image websites on the internet. Some have quite a lot of images for free, and if you want to use all their images, you have to pay a subscription. And some are completely free. But I mean, these are three that I use for, you know, other stuff as well. I don't use these for books. I use these if I need an image. So there's Pexels, there's Pixabay, and there's Unsplash. But there are more, and you have to be careful that you might Google, for example, free images, and it will just give you free images that have free copyright, but you have to pay for them. So just be aware. So yeah, I'm giving you the way all my kind of resources are free, but there are resources that you can pay for as well. But I'm just going to start on a level playing field and say these are the free options. Free design software. There's quite a few good ones. I've used GIMP before, although I still have Photoshop. And Canva and Pixlr and Photopea. You can download these for free and make a book cover. Some of them have book templates, but also you could go onto YouTube or a similar thing and find out the process of how to do a book from their kind of tutorials. So yeah, you don't have to pay for design software. You can do it for free. There are loads of others, but these are the ones I know of, and people who I know publish you also use.
I can vouch for Canva. We use that at Disability Arts Online. We get the full version of that with a charity through a charity discount program, but the basic one of it that we were using previously is still pretty good. It's really good for layout, and it's because you do it in your browser. It's because I also use GIMP, but it's a bit more advanced, isn't it? GIMP, it's a bit more like Photoshop. So
yes,
I think if you've got some design skills and are familiar with something like Photoshop, GIMP's great and you can do a lot with. Canva is much more drop and drag, isn't it? And it just centers things for you very nicely and gives you sort of snap to fit for. I think that's quite good for text layout and stuff. And it also has images in it that are sort of free to use, but the nicer images are all you have to pay for the full version of it in the same way as the previous slide, Dolly. But I can
Canva I would use if you're like a complete newbie. Because I have to say it's quite an exciting process, but it can also be a frustrating process. Self-publishing your book, especially if you're doing it for the first time. But even if you're not doing it for the first time, because the way it's done, I mean, the kind of publishing changes. The technology changes as quickly as everything else, and you have to relearn ways to do it and stuff like that. But this is free stuff. Canva I would do if you're not confident with design. One of the things you can do if you've got a book idea, to use on your book, use it as a selling point. I mean, if you, for example, there's this thing where they say, describe your art or describe your book or your film to somebody in a lift in one sentence. So, that would be a kind of helpful thing to do. And if your book's not ready yet, you're not quite sure what the book is, you just pick up any book and kind of that you've read, and try to describe it to somebody. Even it could be your dog, your cat, whatever, in one sentence. And me and myself and Ellie Page, who's also an artist, we kind of played around with the Mills and Boon books and gave them new titles. So relating to being a psychiatric patient, and kind of we found just kind of coming up with a new title or coming up with the one sentence description is really a good way of kind of this is with regards to your book cover, how to come up with the title for your book, but also how to describe your book for your book cover. So I mean, there are two images of Mills and Boon's book. I think they're from the 60s and 70s. They are very dated, the paintings. So we've turned, I don't know what the original titles were. So excuse my language, I am about to swear. One of the Mills and Boon books we changed the title to is You're on a One-to-One, Don't Fuck Off. And the description is how Mona escaped hospital, smashed patriarchy, and found love. See, I would buy that book if it weren't by me, basically. And the second one, I thought let's give the description and the title in the title. So basically, said the second book, which has a very suave man. He looks like I don't know how many of you are old enough to remember, but there used to be what was it? Box of chocolates in the 70s. But he looks like a man who brings you a box of chocolates through the kind of the rouge to you. I'm sorry if people don't know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about anyway. It's a moody man looking at a blonde-haired woman who's holding her head, very plaintively. So we called this actually. He says, I have a personality disorder because I don't fancy him. So these are kind of exercises to kind of get your creative mind going, to help you kind of help you with titling your books and describing your books. You might have them already. Some people just can come up with many ideas for titles with it before they've even written the book. That's fine as well. I'm going to. Is there enough people to do 2 breakouts or?
So, Dolly, we've got. Let me just do a quick another count. 1, 2.
We could do it as a whole. We do it as a group.
7. We've got 7 at the moment. We did have 8, but someone's dropped out.
Okay.
So we've got 7. We could either do a group of 4 and a group of 3, or we could just do it as one big group of 7.
Okay, What do people have a preference to go into a smaller group, or I'm going to open this to you. I'm not going to talk much about it. So, basically,
Beth and Tanya have said one group, I think, by the looks of it. The other thing that's worth bearing in mind is anyone who needs the captions would probably be best to stay in the main room, just because I'm not sure.
Okay.
With live captions, if we're going to break up, but I was going to ask that anyway. Anyone who needs captions to stay in the main room, but it looks like I'm not going to say a consensus, but certainly we've got 3 people saying one group.
Okay. Well, we'll do it as one group, and basically I'll say what the exercise is, and then I'll open the floor to what people want to say, if they want to say anything at all. So the idea is to look at a book, any book. If you've got a favorite book or any book with you, can you, if it's a book that you've not bought, if it's a book you bought, if it's a book you bought spontaneously, what was it about that book that grabbed you? If it wasn't an author you knew. So I'll talk a little bit about a book I just bought from a charity shop last weekend. I like bright colours, so I just saw the spine of this and then the title, and I thought, oh, this sounds interesting. This sounds like it might even be disability based, and it was. So yeah, it was the colour, the spine that grabbed me. So
teal blue, wasn't it? It's sort of tealy blue.
It's a teal blue with Rolling Warrior in white text and some smaller text I can't read at the minute. And so if you've got a book with you,
yeah, could we give? I'll tell you what. Why don't we give everyone 2 minutes? There was a prompt in the sign up to bring a book, but if we give everyone a couple of minutes to just either grab a book or think of a book, and then be ready to come back on this. Okay. Does that sound good?
Grab a glass of water.
I'll tell you what. We're at 14. We're at 14:57, so we're about an hour in. So should we take a break now, and that gives people a chance to get a drink and come back with the book? Probably
a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Great. Okay. So should we if we come back for 5 past? Is that okay? 3. So we've got 8 minutes. Yeah, and if you want to get a drink, go to the loo or whatever, if you can grab a book and bring it back with you, fab. And yeah, we'll see you back here then.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Does anyone want to talk about a book they picked? About what grabbed them about the book?
Just the prompts again, where can you pinpoint how you chose a book by its cover? What grabs your interest? What puts you off? Does it suit the genre it's in? What's the message of the book? Can you tell who its target audience is just from the cover? Anyone want to kick us off? Go on, Kane John Mills.
Thank you. So the book that I've got here is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And it's quite a visually striking book, and it's like a bold pastely yellow and a bright pink square within that, where Jeanette is holding like the what would contain ashes, which is bright pink, but instead it's kind of like confetti-esque that's spilling out of it. And obviously the title is very, very striking. Quite a controversial title in some ways, but knowing a bit about kind of what Jeanette's experienced, it is kind of an understandable title in that it's largely delving into child abuse and her lived experience of that. So yeah, I think the kind of the coloring, the boldness of it, and how you're not really overloaded with information. Like, it's quite bare, but the imagery that is used is very striking. And then there are just kind of pockets of quotes as well from people also recommending the book and, you know, saying why they think it's a really important book. And the same with the back as well. That is all just quotes from people about it. So it's not massively trying to be like the book is about this. It's letting some of those quotes touch on some of those subjects instead, which is quite interesting to be like, here's it through like all of those people's lenses, rather than the author of the book being like, this is about this, you know. So that's also another interesting kind of shift as well.
It's good to have books having intrigue as well. So like, it's just touching on the book cover is only touching on stuff, and it's kind of like, oh, what's this about? I mean, if it's asking you like, yeah, I mean, like you say, it's not giving you the story on the book cover. It's kind of just touching on it, so you're kind of maybe intrigued as to what the story is. But yeah, that's I'm going to read that book if I can find it. Anyone else?
Yeah, I can go. This is. Oh, can you see?
Yeah, it's because you've got your black background blur on, but it's kind of bits of it coming into focus.
Oh, how do I get rid of the background?
It'll be on your video settings somewhere, Ivan.
Okay.
Click the little arrow over your video.
Yeah, I'll unblur it.
Blur your background.
There you go.
Yay!
Amazing.
That jumped out at me because it was like that, and I thought that's grabbable. And then I looked at that and I thought, yeah, that's a bit kind of, it shouts at you, literally. And then because that's what grabbed my attention when I looked straight away.
It's like
it's you know, it's got googly eyes and a screamy mouth in easy to see circles, and then you've got the mighty book of Boosh, which is not to be confused with anything pornographic or a lesbian adventure.
Damn.
And it when it says, you know, like it grabs my attention. The only thing about it would put me off would be if it got food encrusted on it. And I'd say this is fun and humour and anarchic.
Yeah.
So
if I talk about sorry. Carry on.
Sorry?
I said if it was a book about funerals, it wouldn't suit.
No.
No, so it suits what's inside it, basically.
Well, you know, it probably have a lot of art in it, or wacky drawings, and lots of pictures and funny stuff. When I thought what kind of people would buy this, and I thought I don't really know, but I'm definitely one of them, and I don't think people who take themselves too seriously would like it.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
I think you have to have
That's a
cover.
yeah. That's
Okay.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan. Before we go to someone, I just want to say that Julius in the chat said the cover was what grabbed me. Nature image of an owl, title The Lost Spells. It's a children's book by Robert McFarlane and Jackie Morris. The watercolors are amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
But yeah, basically what I'm basically kind of getting at is the book cover is a very powerful way to entice people into being interested in your book. I mean, if you're an academic, the kind of cover of the Mighty Bush book wouldn't have been appropriate, but maybe that it's time to break what's appropriate for certain genres, but maybe not in your first book. I would say, but yeah, it's just to give you a few ideas that actually you have to think about the book cover. If you don't want to make it image based, how are you going to sell the book cover wise? You'll have to do it in words, in the title, in the description, or in the quotes you use, basically. Let's go to the shared a file in the meeting. Does anyone else want to?
Hi, it's Beth. Can I? So I actually got this book because it was recommended in I got it more for the name because it was recommended in a lecture I saw, and I half like the cover but half think it's nothing to do with the subject matter. So it's called Circe, so it's the retelling of Circe, who was one of the nymphs who got exiled by her father Helios, and it's from her perspective. And so in a way, the fact that there are vaguely Greek-like women at the bottom, I'm not sure how clear it is,
yes,
kind of gives you a bit of a clue. And she was very involved with her like herbs and witchcraft, so maybe that's why there's this like central kind of image which looks a bit like a vessel for like holding herbs and stuff in, but it's very ambiguous. I like the color scheme.
Yes.
And some of the quotes above are quite quite interesting, and also there's text at the back which gives a flavor of the book. But if I didn't know who Circe was and also who Madeline Miller was, yeah, so it's kind of on the fence. I think it's an interesting attempt, particularly because of the colors used. They're quite sensual, and there's like owls and stuff flying in the background. But in terms of like whether it fits, I don't know.
It's still a beautiful cover, I think.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. Just a quick thing about quotes. Some people say, "How do you get quotes?" I usually just put. Well, I go through my kind of contact list, but I also do calls out on social media. And in one book, I got somebody who's an artist say that this book made me laugh so much. Milk came out of my nose. So if my book were a serious book, that wouldn't have been an appropriate quote. But because that book was about humour, that I think would make people think, oh, it might be a funny book. So yeah, thank you, Beth. Anyone else?
Let's just read what Carla's put in the chat. So Carla said, just to say I've lost my voice, so I can't really speak, but where you find a book can be something that supports the pull of an unknown book. I picked up a book from the Horse Hospital a decade or so ago called The Measure of Reality. it has this image of a woman's face with something like light emanating from her eye, and there is a metallic sheen to the cover, creating a strange effect. Not sure I would have bought it if it wasn't at the horse hospital, but because it was there, I felt I had a feeling there would be good quality to it.
Yeah, yeah. I'll check that book out later. The cover of it, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I can share. Hi everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, bye.
Yes, Tanya.
Yeah, so this book I already was recommended because of what it's about, and then I realized that it's also a really beautiful cover as well, but I didn't pick it because of the cover.
Yeah.
It was already recommended. I just think the illustrations are really beautiful. Different people doing everyday things. It's about healing from trauma and estrangement and deep self-acceptance. And there's a bit about the author on the back. And yeah, she wrote a really lovely thing. Sorry, am I supposed to explain this more about what's on there, or?
You can talk about what's if it's.
Are they constellations, Tanya, that are sort of making up the shapes of the people? Is it constellations in the stars? Is that?
I'm not sure really. I mean, it's just like very colourful. Yeah, sort of. Yeah, there's some sort of abstract linking of people doing different things, gardening, someone in a wheelchair. There's a couple. And then she wrote this really lovely kind of, I don't know what you would call it, like it's not a forward, I'm not sure, it's just
yeah.
Yeah, like
yes. Sorry. That's beautiful.
Yeah, just read the first. It's for the rebels and misfits, the black sheep and outsiders, for the refugees, the orphans, the scapegoats and the weirdos, for the uprooted, the abandoned, the shunned and the invisible ones. May you recognize with increasing vividness that you know what you know. Anyway, it goes on a little bit, but it's really beautiful. And the book's incredible.
See, just by you've not kind of talked about the book, that what's inside. You've literally all of you have given me one-line explanations of the books, but you've made me interested in those books. I'm going to check out probably all the books that have been kind of highlighted. So yeah, it's just kind of this kind of exercise just to make you aware of the power of the cover. And usually what people do is that if they're in the bookshop, they'll look at the cover and read the back and maybe start with the first few pages. So to have that kind of I don't know if it's a poem or something, but yeah, that would have definitely drawn me in. Anyone else, or shall we move on? Oh, thank you for the people that shared stuff, and Carla has shared the book, the image of the book in the chat function. Yeah, yes, yeah, it's like you definitely see from that look that book is like a little bit otherworldly. It's not. You can see it's not a cookbook. You definitely kind of awaken some interest. So I will talk about publishing and printing options a few slides down the line. But when we were doing our book, the thing that held up, I mean, we unfortunately our editor died, which slowed things down because it was a human kind of thing. We had to stop because we were feeling grief. But the thing that made us pull our hair out of our head was this ebook conversion, because if you choose the print on demand option of publishing your book, they all have different ways of converting your book into an ebook. The last book we did was with Ingram Sparks, and you had to turn the book into an ebook yourself, and then upload it. And the way we found that was the freest, cheapest way to do it. I mean, there are lots of websites where they'll say they will convert a PDF to an EPUB, which is one of the ebook formats. But when we tried to upload it to Ingram Spark, it rejected most of them. So this is the way we did it. And just to show you, there are a million ways to, not a million ways, lots of different ways to do it, but this is how we did it. We turned our book into a PDF. And if you've got a PDF program, you need to kind of save it into a press ready PDF, which is the one that if you're going to print the work, it needs to be in that format. And one of the best ebook makers online that is free is Calibre, and you can download it for free, and it will turn most different texts, PDFs that is, into an ebook format, usually EPUB, but there are a few other different ebook conversions. So I'm just saying it's a little bit of some elements of it are a bit of a headache if you've not done it before, or you're not kind of very technically minded. So I'll talk a little bit more about ebook when I come to the different publishing options, because each different publishing option has a different way of doing ebook, and some are easier to do than others. So I'm down to the actual printed of the books. So there's kind of two ways you could do it. I mean, unless you've got access to a kind of printing press, the way most self-publishers do their work is either traditionally, that is to find a printer, a printer that prints book. Hold on a moment. Yeah, a printer who prints books. Finding a good one that you could work with creatively can take a while, but if you're quite confident of creating the whole thing yourself and doing the formatting, it shouldn't be too much trouble to find a printer's. The kind of the pros for this is that you can you're in kind of full control. You can see the process of it being made, but you can also what you sell, you keep. What you can decide how much it is. You can you keep all of the profit. You don't have to pay anyone to kind of do anything else. And it is cheaper if you buy in bulk. So, for example, I had a grant to have 5,000 of one of my books printed to be given away. And it was much cheaper. It was ridiculously cheap, but I had to find a place in my small flat for 5,000 books, which was a bit of a problem. You have to store it yourself. The cons of it, you have to store it yourself, distribute it yourself, which is quite hard if you don't have a track record already. You have to basically do everything yourself, unless you've got like people to help you. I would say most people, I mean, the publisher of the Lorena Bowler booklet has been done through local printers. Lottie, who runs Red Herring Press, buys 100 or 200 at a time, and then sells them through her website or through. She has had a long experience in kind of literature, so she knows lots of bookshops. She knows lots of venues, so she doesn't have any problem getting people to stock her book. But that's the thing. If you're starting out, you need to have those. Unless you have those contacts and relationships, I would probably go down the print on demand route, just because you don't have to worry about storing it. or you know, you can literally, like I say, buy just one book to sell, and the different kind of companies would, I think most of them will automatically put your book, once it's published, on online marketplaces such as Amazon and Barnes and Noble and other kind of other routes. And basically, if you do it that way, say somebody in Australia, a bookshop in Australia, can order your book straight from the printer, and they'll send it off to them. If you don't like the kind of the processes and doing the admin and kind of making phone calls and sending emails and developing relationships, the print on demand, I think the simpler version. But they both have their pros and cons. I mean, if I were to print a poetry book now, I would go with traditional and just buy 100 and kind of distribute it myself. But with the other books, for example, are the series on, you know, stories in the mental health, we want it to reach as many people as possible, so we use print on demand. These are what I've had personal experience with, but there are lots and lots of different companies. Lulu Direct I've not used myself, but one of my books was published by the publisher using Lulu Direct, and I took it out the bookshelf. And this book was done in 2012, and it's still in good nick. No pages fallen out. It looks still quite okay. I was told the process was quite simple, but I went online and some people say that the quality is a bit hit and miss, but Lulu Direct is quite a popular thing. I would say the most simplest print on demand publishing option is Amazon, because they give you the templates. For example, if you want to do a paperback in 5 inches by 8 inches, you just put your text into the template and make adjustments as needed. And it will also do the ebook for you as well, and it will give your book an ISBN as well. You don't have to pay for the ISBN outright. It will give the book an ISBN, and it will just take a bit. It will take a percentage of anything you sell. That's how it will get its money back. But there are a couple of kind of negatives about Amazon. I mean, a lot of people don't want to use Amazon because it is like a multinational, and some people, some people say it's killing bookshops and stuff like that. And also the quality is hit and miss. I had 2 books that were published by Amazon, direct publishing. One of them was in pretty good nick, but the other one, after just reading it for a few days, the pages fell out. So I think quality is a bit hit and miss. But the easiest, simplest way to use print on demand publishing, because they'll do most of the work for you. For example, they have a template where you just place the images for your book cover on as well, and then they'll do the adjusting, is Amazon. The one we used last with the last book project is Ingram Sparks. Books are of good quality, but the process is not intuitive at all. If you upload stuff, it will say there's an error, but won't tell you what's wrong. For example, it'll say, this file has an error in it, and also their kind of customer service is a bit rubbish. If you want to have help, it's not timely. You hear like a week after and stuff like that. So yeah, they all have they all do pretty good if you want to put a book out, and some are better quality than others, and some are easier to use than others. But it's like I said, if you don't want to do the process yourself, then yeah, get a local printer involved. The other option is to go on sites like Fiverr and get somebody else to do the formatting for you. But I mean, if I were going to publish another book again, I would use Ingram Spark because now I know how it works. But I also will. I'm tempted to kind of look at other options as well. Amazon, I'm kind of because the last book I got from them had pages falling out. I'm kind of don't want to use them again. But yeah, it's up to you. They've all got their pros and cons. Is there any questions at this point? Because that's quite a lot of information to bombard you with.
Nothing in the chat, Dolly, but let's just give people a moment. Feel free to just speak up if you want to ask a question, anyone. I'll pop it in the chat, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, Dolly, which is, you know, because I want to do poetry and there are images to go with each poem. So which is, you think, the best one to go with for that? You know, saying quality of image, and they're all black and white. That's the thing of beauty of it. So there's no full color process. So it's going to be cheaper, but the subject matter is quite sort of black and white as well.
I think it depends on how confident you are on like using a design software. For example, the printer might ask you to provide the book as a PDF file, and for example, so it's whether you know how to size the book, size the page, and image on.
Well, I'm thinking of doing it landscape.
Okay, yeah.
Rather, I imagine it's a bit more expensive doing it that way because it's not the usual way of doing books, is it? So, but the images are 5x4 probably, so they need to be in that format. Otherwise, if I do it in a smaller book format, it's going to be a tiny image.
Yes. Yeah, you have to the book has to be the best thing for the work, or definitely. I've not done a landscape book using print on demand, but I know a lot of artists who've done like image-based work.
Yeah.
And a lot of them use Lulu, but I've not personally.
Okay.
Personally use them, or maybe all to just have make a project and see how they do stuff. But yeah, a lot of artists use Lulu, because I think I've seen a lot of work in landscape because a lot of people's art, for example, their photography or art is landscapes.
Yeah. The other thing is I'm doing a CD to go with it.
Yeah, I have no idea about CDs, I'm afraid.
No, I'm not asking. It's just that it's something that can be pasted or stuck into the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I probably have to do that myself. So, but I'm not sure I want 5,000 books that I have to.
You don't have to. I mean,
I'm joking.
Yeah. You could start off with 100.
Yeah, I was. That print on the demand sounded like a good option.
Yeah, I mean, for example, I'm going to show you some of the images in this book. So this is a black and white drawing that's in one of the.
Yeah, nice.
Let me find something else. It's not going to be like as crisp as some artists want. There's a cartoon, a series of cartoons in the book, so it's not pristine, is what I'm saying, but I think I think it's good enough.
Yeah. Okay.
And that one was through Lulu, was it, Dolly? That one?
This one, no, this is Ingram Sparks.
Oh, that was Ingram Sparks. Sorry.
Yeah. Any other questions?
We haven't had any more in the chat, so
I think so.
I guess, yeah, people, if anything does pop up, then just get your questions in the chat, people, and we'll come to them.
Okay.
So,
I know there's a lot of information, so you know, this will be. You can have the PowerPoint after if you'd like, either as a PowerPoint or a just a printed version of it, because it is a lot of information. Don't expect you to remember everything I'm telling you. Once you have your book printed, say you've ordered, say 100, 100, say books of poetry. Say this is a book of poetry. You have to, you're legally bound in this country to send 5 separate copies to the 5 different legal deposit libraries in the UK. That's a legal requirement. I didn't know this when I first started publishing stuff. And actually, when I did it 20 years ago, there was only a couple of legal deposit sites, but now there are 5. So when you print 100, I'm basically saying you need to print 105 so that so you can send the book or the book to these legal deposit sites. So basically, it's just where every book that's been published in this country lives. So like from 100 years, 100 years ago, the stuff I did 20 years ago is there, and it's kind of just it's to kind of have one place the written culture of the UK. So that's why it's there. But I don't know why it's a legal requirement, but just to make you aware, you have to send those off as well. There's more information on the legaldeposit.org site as well. So we're going to come to, excuse me, marketing and publicity. And these are the ways I've kind of marketed and publicized my work. So when I had my first book, the first thing I did was in South London was go to my local library where I live half the time anyway and said, I've done this, can I do a book reading? And they said yes, because we see you every week. And then kind of talking to people in bookshops. I think, you almost all have to have an author website for people to go to find more information, or a page on your website if you do other stuff. There are lots of free online, lots of free website makers. I think wix.com is the one I used before I actually had my own website, and it's just to be a place for people to learn more about your work, and the reason you're writing or publishing and sport and stuff. That's a useful thing. It's a kind of expectation. Blogging is very powerful. I mean, I have to really thank Disability Arts Online for kind of widening the interest people had in my work. I think it could be even 18 years ago. I think Colin said to me, "I like you. I like your work. Blog for us." I said, "Oh, okay." And it's a good way for people to see your style of writing as well, and be interested in your work just generally. So I find blogging has been really helpful. But I would use kind of if you're just going to blog on a page that hasn't got any links to anywhere else, how are people going to find it? So I would find platforms like Disability Arts Online to write about writing or your art. It's very useful. Or blogging, if you prefer to talk into a camera, you could do that. A YouTube video. When this book came out, that this is the last book I've done, so this is why I'm talking about it a lot. Most of the sales online came via Instagram. So yeah, Instagram is quite a powerful way to sell books. I'm too old to use TikTok, but those younger than me have said that TikTok has helped them sell their poetry and stuff. So yeah, these are just, I learned about writing a press release when I had my first book published by another author, my first non-self-published book. And I just sent it to my local paper, and they put me in the local paper where I'm smiling with a cheesy grin with my book. I tried to find it, but I know it's in my box of press cuttings and stuff. But yeah, learn to write a press release, and press release is basically giving the what, the where, the when, the why, and the how of your if you're writing about, if you're doing a press release about a book, about your book, and why should people be interested in it, you know. I have done a lot of author talks online and in places, all sorts of different places. I've done Zoom events. When I the stuff I've written around mental health early in my career, that I wanted to, the books I wanted to sell, I used to just email mental health conferences and say, I'm a person with lived experience. I'm trying to kind of trying to find a life, trying to kind of develop a career. It'd be really helpful if I could sell these books at your conference. Can you give me a free place and a table? And some said no, and some said yes. And but the books I would sell there on mental health just went all in. I've sold my books at Zine, Art and Book Fairs. Because I used to live in London, you're really spoilt in London. It's a bit harder up here, but there's still lots of options. Museums, because Lorena Bowler is a historical, historical person, and there's a lot of museum interest in her. I've been able to sell this booklet in museums, and I think a few hundred have been sold just in Norfolk museums. And if you're like doing poetry, when I started the first two books of poetry and short stories, I used to sell at open mics, before I was asked to do like poetry things. So those are like the basics of book marketing and publicity that I have found helpful. But there are loads of other ways of doing it. So there's more. There are lots of kind of guides online. You have to be careful because a lot of guides online about self-publishing want you to buy a course or buy a book, but some of them have really good lists of marketing and publicity strategies. So we come to the second breakout exercise, even though we're not breaking out possibly. Can anyone, or can you all, come up with as many weird and wonderful ways to publicize or market your book? I know people who have done a book reading at a book shelter. I've done, I think the only limit is your imagination, really. So
yeah, weird and wonderful ways to market your book. Who's going to get started? Have you got some funny examples of ones that you've done, Dolly, in the past?
I've done a poetry book reading in a tree in Regent's Park. But I didn't organise that, somebody else organised it, and so we read poetry out of a tree to people walking past. That was quite successful. I think as I'm getting older, I'm a little bit more like mellow. But if I were a little bit younger, I would like, if it were, for example, critiquing the mental health system, I would probably turn up at a psychiatric conference and pretend I was one of the speakers. Something like that. It could be.
Book about football, streak on the pitch with the book strapped to your chest.
Or strapped somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah, in a more convenient. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Read the small print, maybe on your chest. It's just basically, I know it's a cold, miserable day, and the brain is hard to get into gear at times. But yeah, just you don't have to come up with an answer. But
I think pretending to be a high street preacher but reading from your own book would be quite funny if you could kind of invert the, subvert the genre of the high street preacher.
that's a really good idea. Maybe, especially if you do a book about religion or your thoughts about, religion. I did a book reading at Lorena Bowler's grave, but it was like people knew I was going to do it. I didn't just turn up at a grave and read, because she'd be the only person to really listen.
Well, I suppose anything like that is, if you can come up with a gimmicky thing like that, then it might be at least local press worthy, right? Then you've created a splash.
Yeah. I mean, marketing is a dirty word, I have to say. Don't think of it as, well, if you don't want to market the book, think of it cheap, or not cheap, even cheap, free ways to get publicity for your book. I mean, it could be like, for example, if you've got, or writing about a subject matter, say you're writing about chess, you could, ask local chess clubs to host, an author reading. Audiobooks, I've not done. That's something I'm going to look into next, because I want to turn the 3 books we put out into audiobooks. Basically, these were funded, and then we didn't get the funding for the audiobooks, but I'm going to do audio versions anyway. So I'm going to look into how that's done. But I don't have experience in turning books into audiobooks just yet. Listen, even the word gimmick is like a bit people. But yeah, just think interesting ways to sell your book, because it's art galleries. If there's kind of a link to art, asking art galleries to have you do something there.
I think arts organizations, special interest organizations, approaching those, ones that are relevant to the theme, and approaching them, just saying, I've got this book, can I come and talk about your thing, or would you be willing to promote it for me on social media? You have to you have to be a bit cheeky, don't you? And
you have to be a bit cheeky. The world, unfortunately, the world isn't going to come to you. You have to make yourself known. And that's basically what publicity is making yourself known. So yeah, I mean, I'm having difficulty coming up with slightly quirky ideas, and that's my bread and butter. So yeah, for example, we need to just put the book out of the series, and once we've done that, we'll be doing events where we kind of talk about the book and sell them. And it's, for example, we've got one, if I can find, here it is. We've got one, this is a proof copy, so that's why it's got a cross on the end, but on the top. But yeah, this is LGBTQIA plus phobia in the mental health system. There are all sorts of different kind of queer spaces to kind of say, going to queer creative spaces, or like health spaces, just saying, this is what I've written. Oh no, this is what I've published. Are you interested in sharing it? And stuff like this could also, universities, would a university have interest in kind of sharing your work?
Beth, you popped up on screen for a little bit. Did you have something you wanted to contribute? Only if you did.
Go out to outpatients for a captive audience. That is so funny, because Cara Aranella and I, before she died, unfortunately, so it didn't happen, we were going to do something similar. We were going to go to waiting rooms and outpatients to do performative stuff. But yeah, that'd be a great place to kind of to do it. Yeah, it is captive audience. I mean, you have to be careful. Like if you did a book, How to Escape a Psych Ward, and you went onto a psych ward, you'll get into trouble.
That sounds like something you've done, to be fair, Dolly. Speaking from personal experience there, wouldn't be...
I'm not saying anything. Or how to pick a lock, trying to kind of do an event at prison wouldn't work. But yeah, it is, yeah, I mean, to get ideas, go into places like YouTube and say, how have people promoted their work? There's all sorts of different ways you can get people to notice your work. Yes, it is hard. It's basically what I'm saying. It's hard, but it's not impossible. You just have to do some research on ways other people have done it, and kind of think up a few of your own as well.
Beth, did you have one? Did you have one, Beth?
I put the mic away. It's kind of related. So last year, I was still under the impression that I had to basically set up a whole think tank in order to get my basic needs met. This year, I'm much more able to focus on that actually being okay in my own creative practice is enough, and also having to withdraw from university. But I made a first attempt at business cards, and the think tank, if it was to be creative, is called the Space Imagination Engine. And my job title was Space Ranger. So in a way, and it just has my email address on it, and with a little bit of a blurb around like what. So I wrote, promoting playfulness and research and the importance of creative and inclusive engagement. And I thought, let's not spell everything out, but kind of just have a bit of something that might be not your norm.
Yes.
But also the fact I get to call myself a space ranger.
Well, that's brilliant. That is, yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, if you kind of use a business card, make it stand out from the business card, whether in kind of style or content. Yeah. Well, my business card is none of your business card, and so that people need to kind of have ways to remember you. So yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I just when I was talking about I got a grant to give away 5,000 books. Check out grant. I mean, like Arts Council do literature grants. I got the funding from because I lived in South London. I was under the Maudsley Hospital. Some hospitals have a charity connected to it. Another option is actually welcome and say, I would like to publish this book for this reason. So what I did, I said, this is my mental health memoir, and I want to put it in mental health spaces like inpatient wards, outpatient places, and day centres. This shows how long ago it is. And I got the funding to do that. And to this day, and this is like a couple of decades ago, people said, "Oh, I read your book. It was on the shelf in the psychiatric ward." So yeah, the other option to get it's dependent on the subject matter. For example, if you're writing a book about, say, it has to, basically the charity or the arts organisation have to have the kind of link to the content, really. But yeah, those are other options. Anything else?
Dolly, it's 2 minutes to 4, so I don't know whether is there sort of concluding remarks that we want to make.
Okay, I will just move on to, if you ask for a copy of the PowerPoint, there are links by the literacy consultancy about editing, dialogue, voice structure, and there are a few other links if you're interested in self-publishing. Q&A, and there's Scamp, my dog, who I insist is in every PowerPoint. But yeah, if you've got any questions to ask now or ask me later, that's fine. Here is my remark. It is concluded.
Yeah, any questions before we wrap up? Thank you. Thanks everyone. Yes, what we'll do about slides is I'll get final slides from Dolly. We'll probably PDF them, and then we can email them out to everyone who signed up for the session. Also, we will make the recording available on our YouTube channel in the next couple of weeks, because we'll want to get it properly captioned and slightly edited. Probably, if anyone made any contributions that they really don't want to be shown on a recording, reach out via email to us, and I can look at editing those out. But hopefully not. But if so, I can do that if it's a big problem. Yeah, Tanya, I can edit you out if you don't want to be on YouTube. Sorry, I did say at the top of the session that was being recorded. You may have come late, I can't remember. But if you don't want to be included, I can edit out any bits of you contributing. I'm happy to do that. That's okay if that's what you'd like. Tanya, is that okay? Voice okay, not video. Got you. No problem. I can.
And if anyone wants to email me with any kind of follow-up questions or advice, I'm happy to do that as well.
Yeah, no problem with that. I'm just responding to Tanya in chat. No problem with that. I'll make sure your image is not in the edit. Anyone else for any more, put that in the chat now.
Yeah, Joe, I don't want to be in it. I'm joking.
That's going to make my editing job really hard, so thank you for that. Lovely. Yes, thanks everyone for your lovely comments. Again, I put a link to some feedback form in the chat. If you've got 5-10 minutes to do that, we'd really appreciate it. We will badger you again to do that via email. If you don't remember to do it now, but it is important, just because we need that feedback to demonstrate to funders that we're not just burning their money. Or
that's a good publicity. Joe, that's good publicity.
Is it illegal? Is that true?
Well, burn money that looks like money. Ben.
Okay, left it, didn't they? All right. Well, thank you everyone again for attending. Thanks for all your contributions. Thank you most especially to Dolly for delivering today's session. Thank you to our captioners typing away in the background. Yeah, thanks everyone, and hopefully we'll see you again at another thing soon. Yeah, if you're interested in blogging on DAO as well, do reach out via the emails that we've been communicating to you with. Yeah, thanks everyone.
Okay, bye.
We're out.
Very much. Thank you. Take care.